G'day, everybody. So you better make yourself comfortable with this one. There's a lot of questions here. In fact, I don't even know exactly how many. But anyway, we'll give it a go and see what happens here. There's quite a lot. So, okay, first one's a comment from Cliff. Thanks, Cliff. I haven't even been, I've just seen the first couple here and I've got no idea what's coming up. But anyway, we'll see. Big thank you from Philip. Beginning have been hooked. Fantastic highlights. I've learned so much. Thank you all for competitors. Yeah, thanks a lot, Phil. That's really cool. This is the second GGR we've followed. So excited to see Kirsten nearly home. I've got an iPad here. Jeepers. Okay. Didn't sleep well last night. It was ferocious storm, formed extraordinary. I'm looking for the question. The GGR is an amazing journey. Yes, it is. However, my question is, how did you feel at that time, Don? They're off to a great start. I had to, so it's starting to concern. We have listened to Ian's interview. I didn't sleep well that night. I knew he was in trouble. It was a ferocious storm, and saw how there was no way out for Ian. The GGR is amazing. How did you feel at that time, Don? Did you ever think Ian might not survive? No, I never at one point thought Ian wouldn't survive. I have a great deal of faith in the structure of the boats that we choose to do the GGR. It's better than any life raft, touch wood. I'm still no idea why Tommy's boat sunk. Tapio's boat sunk. It shouldn't have sunk, but it did. You have a great opportunity to keep these boats afloat, even through the worst of the storms. So you should come out the back end of the most horrific storm, touch wood, and still be afloat. And then you've got various forms of communication. Now you can get beat up and smashed around, bouncing around inside the boat when it's going. But no, I had faith in Ian. I had faith in the system. The Argentinians did a great job, and various agencies involved. And fortunately, there were 3 Taiwanese fishing vessels there. So you're focused when you're doing it. We have a job to do. I've been involved with rescue coordination centres around the world for many, many years. Probably for 30, 40 years. I see how they operate. I see what they do. And when you're in their offices when there's an emergency going on, and I've done just that. You see the way they operate. They're cool, they're calm, they're professional, they have a job to do, and they know that the best thing that you can do to help the victims at the time is just do your job, just get on with it. Don't get hooked up on, having said that, yes, sometimes you do get emotional, but it usually happens after the event. So, crisis management, excuse me, is a very interesting subject. OTA Productions, GGR team question. Would it be possible for your team to do post-race boat tours similar to how you did pre-race? So I'm very interested to see all the ingenuity that sailors have put into their boats along the journey, especially Abrish. It sounds like he's holding things together. We might be able to, not all the boats are coming back here, of course, and I'll see what the timelines are for Abrish. Everyone's very tired after not only the voyage, but all their team, the organisation that goes into it. But if we get a chance to get alongside the boat, there's not a lot of visible things. I've already had a look at the boat, and the classic was his wind pilot just using the shank of the Fortress aluminium anchor. That was a brilliant move. A small surface area in the water to keep working, but there's a lot of leverage there on a pendulum system, so it worked. It was quite cool. And it's some other things Ablish was telling me about the running backstay. You have a wire there, you put it inside a swage, and then you clamp the swage on the wire, and it should never pull out. Okay, one of his backstays failed when it wasn't even on load. It just slipped out of the swage, which was interesting. Is it working?
Yeah, but I like the light.
Okay. Oh, the light looks a bit stupid, Jane's saying. She's watching the bits here. But anyway, there's not a lot we can do. It's a grey, overcast day here. I'm sitting in the kitchen. Anyway, okay. So that was amazing. You shouldn't just have a swage pull out like that. But anyway, it did. So we'll have a look. I'll try and do some of them. Thank you, Don. Happy Wednesday over there. Things about to get really exciting. Bravo to you. I don't think I have a question. I certainly enjoy tuning in. Thanks a lot, Carl. Okay, from Martin. I think the Cape George 36 was an inspired choice for the GGR. I agree entirely. It is heavier than the Russell 36, but its waterline length makes it look good speed-wise using the standard design ratios, yes. Where it stands out is the comfort screening factor. This is, if you go to it, there's a website called sailboat data. And if you have any boat, so it's called the pink pig design. If you just go Google pink pig design or pink pig sailboat data, you'll get all the statistics on all the boats. It's really fascinating. I use it regularly. So thanks, sailboat data, to give you information on all sorts of things on individual designs. Where it stands out is the screening factor. How much do you think that the ride quality plays into the overall package and likelihood of success? That's an interesting point. Knowing what that comfort factor is, it has a little bit to do with it, but not a lot. All of these boats in the GGR have got a heavy displacement, which gives them a reasonable ride ratio. I think it's the ratios. The key data points are really waterline lengths, sail area displacement ratios, which is the overall sail area of the boat against the weight of the boat. Obviously, if you've got a big sail area and you've got a light boat, then that helps. But then you've also got to look at the riding moments to give you the power. You can have a huge sail area, but if the boat's real tippy and falls over easy, you're not going to get much power because the boat will just blow over. You've got to reef the boat anyway, and all sorts of things. It is a complicated factor, but I don't think the ride quality, which is comfort factor, is a real fair gauge to the speed potential of a boat. The heavy displacement and so on of the boat, and the riding moment is important. But yeah, hard question to answer. But I wouldn't look for, so the boat with the biggest comfort ratio is going to win the GGR. I wouldn't necessarily say that all the time. It's surprising when, now, because I hadn't seen the boats for a long time on the marina, you've got Kirsten's Cape George 36 alongside Tapio's, cheapest, too many names. You've got Kirsten's boat, Cape George 36. You've got Abilish's boat, Rustler 36. And on the other side, you've got Simon's boat, Biscay 36. And it goes something like this. Simon's boat's cool and neat and relatively small, pinched in, more finer transom. The boat comes in at the back of the boat and the bow's pretty cool. You look at Abilish's Rustler 36 and it's pretty interesting. Got quite solid quarters, the bustle at the back of the boat. Which gives it some power in riding. It's got a reasonably fine bow. It's got a different sort of keel. The keel's a long way back on a Rustler 36. And then you've got Kirsten's boat. And it reminds me, if you forget about the mast and rigging, it reminds me of a little square rigger. It's got a really full bow, huge amount of buoyancy up there. And its beam structure is, it carries its beam well aft, and it's pretty much parallel water lines. There's not a lot of extreme beam there. And that, when you've got parallel water lines, it's a fascinating thing, because I used to, build boats to that extreme. When the boat heels, it doesn't want to round up because as it's heeling, the water lines sort of on the port side and the starboard side are similar where they're breaking the water. So there's a lot of good things about a Cape George 36. I'm not a naval architect, but I can see that buoyancy in the bow is fantastic for heavy running in the Southern Ocean, things like that. Not so good in the light going to windward because you've got a bluff bow. Lots of complications to try and get involved with all that. And there's a lot of information on the web about that as well, so you can Google it. But there are three remarkably different boats, and they've all done pretty well, especially Simon. But it's more than the boat, but the boat is a part of it. And I go on about this. I'm so happy that people realize you don't have to have a Rustler 36 to win the race. There's more to it than that. So anyway, Michael, what a finish. Enjoyed the coverage. 3 boats arriving 2 days apart. Congratulations to all of them. Can you talk through the storm that Abilish experienced where he was at the helm for 12 hours? I think he said there was no prior weather alert for that. Yeah, it popped out of nowhere. We were watching the weather and all that sort of stuff. And we saw this, what looked like it's going to be a bit heavy. It wasn't over 35 knot forecast. But in reality, it became a very tight storm that was very intense, and it was right on top of him again. And so we didn't know anything, it was no big deal. And then he reports the next day and it was like, what? So the essence of that is that the only weather information you get to form the weather models that the forecast are generated from in the Southern Ocean are from floating buoys around the place. And bad data in, bad data out. No data in, bad data out. And when a system is small and intense and on top of itself, so it's not a massive thing that shows up really well, you can miss it. And so when we say to guys about the weather and we're estimating what's going on, we're basing our information on the forecast that we're seeing on the various models. So, and it was intense and it was tight. There was a few other interesting things on that as well, and this is something that I've said to Ian in the midst of the storm, as he just had entered into the storm and he'd already set off his EPIRB when it was just at the start of the storm. I said to Ian, I said, look, you've got to be very clear about this, that you have to get through this storm. No one's going to save you in the middle of the storm. You got to get through it. So whoever saves you is going to be after the storm. So you got to survive it anyway. You can't just get off the boat at any point. And one of the keys to that is the ability to get out there, and you just got to look after the boat and look after you. And Aberlich sat there for 12 hours, couldn't get off the helm, couldn't do anything. It was a high risk moment. But if you're steering the boat, you have a better chance of surviving rather than letting the boat lay a hull and to its own devices without warps and without sail up front. And that's exactly what Aberlich had to do. He knew that. And I won't say I've been in similar situations because I haven't. But what I can tell you, I've been in situations where I've had to steer for nearly 13 hours straight when other members of the crew of the boat that I was on weren't capable of doing that. And sometimes you just got to do it, right? You've just got to say to yourself, luck it out. So every time I go and watching heavy weather, I make sure I got some grub in my pockets, a muesli bar or something like that. And this hasn't happened often. I don't want to I'm not trying to say I'm a hero. And I'm not, right? I've got to be careful what I say. I'm just saying, when you go and watch in tough conditions, you should have some muesli bars and so on in your pocket. You should have a water bottle close by because you don't know how long you're going to be there if the conditions are changing. So, and even on the little mini, I did that a few times. I had some interesting weather going to Lanzarote, but I made sure when I was out, I said, I don't know whether I'm going to be out here for 3 hours or I'm going to be out here for 12 hours or whatever. So, but sometimes you just got to keep steering. Susie Goodall did that in a storm in the Indian Ocean. We advised her to go backwards, which she did for a day, back the wrong way to try and decrease the impact of that particular storm. And then she still got hammered and she had to steer. I think there was one session there where she went for about 10 hours or something like that as well, where the wind vane wasn't working. She had a monitor wind vane that wasn't able to cope and the coupling broke and she was in the pickle. She had to sit there and just hand steer through the worst of it for, I forget now, 8 or 9 hours, but she did it and got through it. So that's exactly what happened to Aberlich. And I was surprised. It's the first time I've heard him say at the press conference that he couldn't even put the storm boards in. That was like a what the moment, because somehow I would have to put the storm boards in. So that was interesting for sure. So it was a tough storm, and that's interesting stuff. Okay, Nutik, hi Don, what an amazing finish. When did Sir Robin and VDH become aware that they were alone at the pointy end of their respective fleets? Oh, okay. I don't know about VDH, but certainly Sir Robin, basically his radio that he had on the boat was back in those days, the technology, the gear wasn't as good as it is today. And it was very intermittent. He had a petrol generator to give him power. He only had a couple of batteries. And so he's basically running without power until he ran the generator. And then that wasn't working sometimes. And then the reception and the transmission was poor, but the reception was good enough to get a time signal for his chronometer and his celestial navigation. So he went for many months without knowing where he was, even across the Indian Ocean. All of the Indian Ocean was the same, and then most of the way around the world. But certainly coming up through the Atlantic after he'd rounded Cape Horn, everyone assumed he was dead, basically, or lost, because no one had heard from him for nearly 4 months, and he'd had no news either. And so it wasn't until he was I think it was about 10 days out, he got a ship, and I forget the name of it's in the book. I haven't read the book for a year or so. And they told him that not only was he in the lead, that Matessia had sort of retired and carried on around the world, because that's all he was after. He asked the ship, so where's Matessia? Where's Matessia? And I said, oh, he's gone. He's buggered off to Tahiti. so he thought, oh, he's the lead, and that's how that happened. So the quirky little rules that we have, like cassette tapes for music and celestial navigation and all those things, and the communications, the way we run the comms, the HF radio is that's it. It's the only thing you're allowed for legal communications. And if the entrants don't pick up, where the other boats are, they'll never know. And I think it's really it's these little things that keep the event as close as we can get it to the original Golden Globe race. And that's cool, and it really worked. It just showed, it was so funny, when Kirsten says, "Oh, I don't know, I'm assuming Abolish has already finished," or on the radio or on the satellite phone calls that we make. And Abolish is the same. He says, "Oh, I don't know," and that's the essence. And there's little things like that where we look at that with great delight, because it shows that the GGR rules are working. And they go through the same psychological pressures. People often say this: "How can you be so cruel and not tell them it's not a yacht race? It'd be more fun for them if they know where the other entrants are and all this sort of stuff." So I don't care. That's not the GGR. We're going back to 68. That's what you got to do. So even Jean-Luc, I had a very interesting conversation with Jean-Luc, and I think I may have mentioned this before. In the race, he said, "Oh, it's not as much fun when you're racing. They really need to know their positions." And I explained the concept with it, and he accepted it in the end. He says, "Oh, yeah, I suppose you're right. We're just turning it into another yacht race, and that's not what the GGR is." That's that one. David, the first two boats to cross the line have taken two very different approaches: heavy, steady versus light and minimalistic. Which approach would you take? Thanks, David. I think I could answer that by saying Ian's boat Puffin. I considered that that's this will tell you a bit more about who I am. I would have gone anywhere in that boat. It was prepared so well, it had everything on it. It was real shipshape and Bristol fashion. And I'm not into yacht racing. I'm not a super competitive person. I'm a voyager. If you give me a compass and a knife, I'll always get home. And that boat was just amazing. It was really impressed me. And so I would probably be very happy to do the GGR in a boat like that and try and get it around. So having said that, I'd be happy to sail Simon's boat too, I think. But then again, you see, I immediately said in my brain when I said that, I said, no, I wouldn't, because I could never feel comfortable being in the Southern Ocean with only like one halyard up the top for the Genoa, one halyard for the staysail and a mouse. I've always on my boats, even on my Mini, I've got two Genoa headlands, two staysail halyards or whatever, two, main and a topping lift that'll double up as a second halyard. It's just me. I did that in the BOC. I had so much rope hanging off the mast, it was crazy. But I need to know it's there for, strange situations. So yep, I'd probably be happy to sail Puffin in the GGR, if I was going to do it. That style of boat. Probably would never win, but I don't really, that's so. I'd be happy just to finish. David, yeah, okay. Thistledown. You mentioned in one of your past Q&As that you accepted the Cape Horn wind vane invented by Joe for at least one GGR applicant. Yes, we did. Perhaps a worthy addition of your McIntyre Adventures bookshelf would be the inventors. Oh, well, people could try and do that. I haven't read the book. There's actually probably better books about self-steering. Fletcher's book about self-steering and sailing the boats. There's some really good ones that overview the whole lot rather than one particular type. But the Cape Horn wind vane looks quite a capable wind vane. No problems at all. And there is a reading book list now on the GGR website. Rob put it together on books that we've mentioned if you're interested. G'day, Larry. Would be interest as to where and how far Puffin had moved from the actual rescue position and the position to where the second EPIRB activated. Just curious. Yeah, I haven't plotted that, but I'll see what happens. We may do. Ian and I discussed it again because there was another little EPIRB bit situations. It's looking like maybe Puffin might not be underwater yet because the signal was still going, and it would have activated by being close to the cabin sole. It was on a bag, just above the water, so she could still be afloat there. A bit hard to say. GS, for round the world race like the GGR, I know a keel step rig has obvious advantages for being stronger and more secure. Yes and no, and I'll explain that in a minute. I'd like to hear your opinion of what advantages deck step rig might have over keel step one. Okay. And in your opinion, would that be enough to take advantage to make up for the loss of security of a keel step mast? Well, there's no extra. You can put it like this. If you design the deck step mast well, it can be as strong as a keel step mast. And for those who are non-sailors, basically, if you can imagine, here's the deck of the boat, right? You can put a mast on it there, and do your rigging, and that's it. You got a mast on the boat. That's your rig. You can sail around the world. You can also put the mast, if this is the deck, you can put a hole in the deck, run it through the deck and down to the keel down here, right? So that now the mast is supported at the bottom. It's supported where it goes through the deck, like holds it at that point, and then it's supported at the next spreaders. And if it's 2 spreaders, there's more spreaders up the top. Usually what happens is, like a racing boat, if you deck step the mast, you've got to have a bigger section and everything's a little bit heavier. If you go keel step mast, right, you can afford to have a smaller section because it's supported really well at the bottom couple of meters, right? So it's holding it stiff there. So you can have a smaller section, lighter bits, and sometimes even lighter wires. So there's a trade-off. And often in racing boats, they go deck step, they go keel step, because overall the weight of the rig is less. Weight you get on the mast, the less is going to fall over and so on. Having said that, you can then go the other way and say, why don't we just design a deck step mast with a big fat section and everything, and then we'll just pop it through the deck, same section, same size, pop it through the deck down to the keel, and all of a sudden your equivalent, if both the sections are the same size, your equivalent is a lot stronger when you take it down to the keel as well, because you've got that extra support at the bottom. So for a GGR boat, and yet you haven't altered the riding arm of the boat because the weights are the same. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if you had that, you did all the numbers for deck step, and then you pushed it through, you're making the rig that much stronger. You're not saving weight, you're just making it stronger. And so it's like the wire rigging. If the design is set up for 1x19 wire, that's the sort of the way it's done. For the same diameter, you can use diform wire, which is a little bit heavier, but you get another 15% strength, and it's the same size overall. So I always use diform, especially when you're refitting the boat, because you just get a little bit extra strength. So then you can forget about all of that, and you can say, what's one of the advantages of deck step? Well, one advantage is if you lose your mast, it's going to go clean and it might not rip the cabin off. But if you've got a strong cabin and you've got a keel step mast, when it breaks, it might not break or fall at deck level. You might get a bit left, like happened to Ian. Ian had a bit of section left right up to the lower spreaders. The lowers themselves, the wires were going to the fitting, which would have been under the bottom of the spreaders, and it snapped right there. So maybe that was a factor of the rig being on the keel, being supported at the deck level, and then being supported by the lowers, and then something must have collapsed above that and it sheared, but it kept the bottom bit, so it could have been used as the starter for a jury rig. But of course Ian was injured and he couldn't get there. So you could talk for a long time about that, and that the beauty of owning a boat is to make those choices yourself and so on. So you can do it. This is an interesting one from Warp. Hi, Don. Any chance Nigel Tetley get a mention? I'm going to mention Nigel Tetley for you. He was the first multi-hull ever to solo non-stop, tie the knot, even though his boat sank before the finish in '69. Same type of boat as Donald Crowhurst too. Yeah, it's quite a story, and I think anyone that's following the whole original Golden Globe in 1968 would be familiar with all the 9 entrants, and there were 2 multi-hulls, same design, and Donald Crowhurst made his a racing version by having a simpler cabin top because there's only going to be 1 on board, whereas Tetley had the typical cruising design, with a big cruising cabin and so on. And to be quite honest, to sail at the stage that multi-hulls were back then, to sail that boat around the world via the Southern Ocean was absolutely crazy, right? And I've had, the late Locke Crowder was a great friend, and we all follow the different multi-hulls, and the designs and structures and everything have changed a lot since then. But multi-hulls tip upside down and it's all over. People will say, oh, your monohulls, the keel can fall off and it's all over, which is true. But that doesn't usually happen for the type of boats we've got in the GGR right now, and nor the ones that were used in 1968. Anyway, that's a different story. But the story goes something like this, that it was a plywood boat, and Nigel Tetley was a great sailor. He was a Navy man, and he did an incredible job to get around. I don't know, in hindsight, when you read the books, how did he keep it all happening? He couldn't have, but he did. And then sadly, because of Donald Crowhurst giving the false positions, and he was aware of that, Tetley thought that Crowhurst was breathing down his neck and he wasn't going to win, but Tetley was still in front of Crowhurst and in line for the fastest. So he was pushing his boat too hard, Nigel Tetley was literally pushing his boat too hard, and it started to break up. I think it was about 1,200 miles from the finish, or about 1,000 miles from the finish, and it sunk. Or fell apart. He abandoned ship, got in a raft, got a mayday out. Didn't have an EPIRB, but there was a lot of shipping traffic in the Atlantic, and he got picked up and was rescued, and he lost his boat very close to the finish. He very definitely would have had the fastest time round, and things would have been different. But you got to be there at the finish, and it was overall a very sad story. So, quite a guy, quite an achievement, and there's lots of books about it. So go have a read for sure. Fascinating stuff. GS, another question. Considering all the time boats are just bobbing in the doldrums or wind holes, would a set of oars be allowed? Oh, yeah, they would be. In fact, Mark Slats had a set of oars, but it's pretty difficult to row your way around the world or even through the doldrums there. But once you get the boats moving, it's possible to keep it going. I'm just thinking that even if only managed to improve your boat speed of an average of half a knot over a couple of weeks, you wouldn't want to row for a couple of weeks, that could have meant a win for Abolish. I don't know. It's hard to say, but yes, manual power is allowed in the GGR. Hi, Don. Huge thanks for you and the team's description. My question is, thank you. My question is whether for the next edition of the GGR, you would consider providing competitors with the position of other entrants during the race? No, an absolute definite no. Would this reduce the stress that Kirsten and others? Possibly, but that's not the GGR. And many thanks for Stephen. So yeah, that's quick answers for that one. Hi, Don. Could you please elaborate on trailing warps or chains with specific lengths and diameters of each? Great race. Oh, boy. I could speak for probably 20 minutes on that, but I won't. Best thing to do is Google it, and you'll see all sorts of arguments and descriptions and so on. But generally speaking, the best example is Sir Robert Knox Johnson in his own book, A World of My Own. He describes very clearly how warps are run off the back of the boat. You just have one long line, very thick diameter, and it goes from the one side of the transom all out in a big bite and turns around and comes back to the boat again, and you tie it off. So you can imagine now with this big bite, you can just pull one end in and it shortens the length of the bite. It's very easy to put in and out because the line itself can wrap around a winch usually, and it's proportional drag on the boat, and you can have it going way back, cause a lot of thing. And in fact, I just bought 110 meters of 3-strand, really big diameter line for Explorer, my Swan 57, because if I was in a storm in that boat, big heavy boat, 20 ton, I would use these warps and possibly put other things in with the warps, some chain, or even hang an anchor off the back to hold the rope down and stuff. That's the sort of storm planning tactic we use for that boat in the Ocean Globe Race, and it's very relevant for others as well. You can then have, like Captain Coconut, he would stick a tyre, hang a tyre, wrap some chain around the tyre, put that on the warp, drag it behind. It's just creating resistance. Or you could go with, dare I say it, a series drogue. So a series drogue, to me, you've really got to know what you're doing. Any drogue can be dangerous, right? Because as soon as it hits the water, it's creating drag. And when you're using it, the boat's doing 6, 7, 8 knots downwind, you hit the water, the load, you'll lose fingers, hands, arms, legs, or whatever if you don't do it right. Once something like that is out, they're really hard to get back in, and they create so much drag in short distance. I would personally prefer to be using something that's a bit softer in and out, but creates the same end effect. So I'm a big warps man, but I haven't done it very often at all. I tend to also, if the sort of boat you're in can run before it, if you've got sea room, you're better off keeping boat speed, keeping steerage. Never allow your boat to wallow. I see so many people that I watch the videos and I think, oh, jeepers, you're not giving the chance for the boat to look after itself sometimes because it's going so slow. Sometimes, if you're too far under hull speed, the boat's just wallowing. You don't want that. You got to give the boat a chance, But anyway, everyone's got a different opinion. I'm not an expert on this. I've experienced some heavy weather, but I haven't experienced a lot as others like Jean-Luc and all the rest of it. But generally, you warp or warps or drogue or whatever you want is up to personal choice. Every boat's different, every storm is different, every wave pattern's different, but the idea of the warps is to have a diameter that's going to create drag. So and again, there's a lot of information on Google on that. Okay. Hi, Don. Would you consider allowing outside companies to sell your shirts in the next GGR? Yes, we would. It would certainly save man hours. Yeah, the shop is a real nightmare for us. I had another discussion. I'm maybe talking too fast, but it's the timeline. For us to send a hat out, it just takes us forever. Anyway, we're looking at things on that still. We've looked at all the print-on-demand situations for a company that's got outlets all around the world, but even that's sort of a little bit complicated. And our focus, is being just coping with to keep the race running. And we're mindful everyone wants it. We're trying to get some merchandise up to sell at the prize giving on the 24th of June, and a few other things. But it's a bit embarrassing, but we'll do what we can and the best we can. Okay. From memory, I think, from Michael, I think Jeremy lost his Dodger in a storm. I imagine his current conditions are made worse, having no protection. Yes, there's an interesting conversation going on right now about the 2026 GGR, which we'll elaborate in the future, but we may actually ban hard Dodgers. We'll grandfather the boats that already got them, but my personal opinion is I can see absolutely, I can see now some safety issues associated with having a hard Dodger on the boat in extreme situations. We had a few things happening this time that happened in the 2018 edition, so you may see another edition coming up to the notice of race for 26. We don't want to create one design boats, where everyone's got to have the same things, but not coping and not being able to steer downwind in extreme weather, anything over 70 knots, and it'll happen, is a real issue. And the best thing you can do for that is get all the windage off the back of the boat. And if you've got a hard Dodger, it's a problem. A big hard Dodger, it's a problem. So soft Dodgers might become a thing of the future for Southern Ocean, because then you can strap them down, hold them in, and there's nothing on the deck at the top. So yes, coming up through the trade winds, bit of a problem. But if you've got your Dodger there and the trade winds, you just stick it up, pull your Dodger up, and then you've got it all there, and carry a spare cover like Jean-Luc did. He didn't lose his main cover, but he figured he might, even though it was a fold down soft Dodger. So he carried a complete spare sheet of material already cut, so he could just put a new cover on, which is the way to go. Okay, Chris, could an entrant fit a Badger vapor compressor? Early water maker available in the 60s? Yes, they could. And in fact, one of the entrants in the 2018 edition of the GGR had just such a device, a distillation plant on the boat. It was big and blah, 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 but it was approved. So you could have a distillation product on there, but think of it, you got to use fuel. So maybe you wouldn't want to do that now, because you get two hours time penalty for every litre of fuel. It was interesting. Abelis he had to wear a time penalty for 40 litres of fuel. So that was 2 days and 20 minutes time penalty he got in his finishing time for the GGR. Kirsten used only 30 litres total, and she was given a 30 litre credit. So she didn't even use up her 25 litre allocation. But fuel can change your position in the race substantially. So I don't think a distillation plant would be fitted in any future GGR. What are the top 3 attributes a sailor should skillfully race around? What are the top 3 attributes a sailor needs to skillfully race around the world in the GGR? Number 1, it's all up here. You absolutely have to be passionate and dedicated and want to do it for the right reasons. Okay, that's number 1. If you're not, you will never finish. Right? So all entrants that are joining the race should ask themselves that question: why am I doing this? Why do I want to do it? And the right reasons is because it's deep inside. You either want to prove something to yourself or all those sorts of issues, because it's all in the mind. And that was exactly the case with Robin Knox-Johnson in the first edition, and exactly the case for Jean-Luc. All those that finished were there for the right reasons. Those that weren't, maybe not all of them, but some of them definitely weren't there for the right reasons, and it shows. The second one is the first of the 2 issues, planning and preparation. You've got to get your planning exactly right before you start doing anything. Kirsten was a point of order there. In her planning, she looked very closely at what boat will best suit her and the GGR. And that was a glamour choice, an absolute race-winning choice. So that was smart. So you're planning, okay? And then the last one is the preparation. You got to do everything. Kirsten, once again, she sailed 16,000 miles after she'd done the refit to get on the water. We saw entrants preparing for the 22 edition of the GGR that virtually hadn't sailed their boat. They had plenty of time to sail their boat, but all they were doing was just more gear, more this, more that, more everything, every reason in the book to do everything except go sailing, and they didn't make the start. So you've got to get your preparation 100% correct. Then, because anyone can sail, people often say that, who's going to turn up at the start, or what? I can't do that because just I'm not good enough to sail around the world. That's completely wrong. You don't have to be a big sailor to sail around the world. Jesse Martin had only sailed, I think, about 1,500 miles, and he took off and sailed around the world solo in an SNS 34. Because if you can sail for a week, you can sail solo around the world, provided it's all up here. You've done your planning correctly, risk mitigation, all those things, and then you do your preparation impeccably. Prepare, train, all that sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. That's what you need to do. So good question. Thanks. Okay. Joe. You've mentioned in the last update that all entrants still racing would be notified as soon as someone crossed the line. Would it be fair to remind Abelish of this when he mentioned he already believed? Right at the end it didn't matter. But prior to that, when he told us she didn't know where he was, Kirsten hadn't finished. So we've now told the last two guys that we've had 3 finishes and stuff. So cool. With Bernard Matessia choosing not to finish and head off around the world, what kind of adjustment is there for these races have been at? What kind of adjustment is there for these races that have been at sea for more than a year? Are they changed forever? Absolutely. They all are. And not only that, you don't have to finish to be changed forever with the GGR. Ayrton pulled into Cape Town. He was completely satisfied with his GGR experience, and it probably changed his life. In fact, it has. All of a sudden, he's now got Trekker, and he's going to race my little mini around the world solo as well. And even in the 2018 edition, a few of the entrants lost their boats, had challenging situations. That's changed their life forever, and others that just retired. I mean, the GGR is a life-changing experience just to get involved with it, and I often remind entrants of that fact. So, and those that finish, yes, I mean, if nothing else, they fall back on their experiences and their how they feel. It's a good feeling when you achieve what you set out to do, and it probably changes your character. So yes, it's a significant event for sure. Lloyd, why did Simon elect to not carry a spare wind vane? Many different reasons. I haven't quizzed him totally on this, but at the beginning, before he left Les Sables d'Olonne, I asked him about, are you carrying a spare wind vane? And he said, no, he's got a heap of spares. He had spares, but he didn't want to carry the extra weight for all the other main components. It's all personal choice. So he was a performance guy. Weight was an issue. Also finance. I won't say Simon was rolling in it. He got a sponsor from Howden's at the very end, which buffered a lot of it, but he still, no one's really rolling in dough, you might say. And it was interesting if you listen to Abelish when he had his prang, when he hit the ship for the repairs, he had to find 50,000 euro to actually make those repairs. It didn't come pouring in from the sponsors. Don't worry about it. He felt, and I'm not saying that Boehner wouldn't have given him the money. Abelish felt personally responsible for that crash, and I think maybe he didn't even ask them for any help, which is just the sort of guy he is. He felt obligated to make the repair, and so it cost him 50 grand, and he had to find the money from somewhere. So there's various challenges. All the entrants have got a backstory, and no one's rolling in dough. I mean, Kirsten's still running a crowdfunding to help her cover costs. When I did the BOC in 1991, I owed $320,000. It was over 300 grand on the boat when I started the race. And interest rates in those years in Australia were running between 17 and 20 odd percent. I was paying $153 a day every day I was out there on interest only on the money I owed. So it happens. Even Columbus and the boys back in those days, they had to find sponsors of state agencies and royal people and stuff to try and get the money to fund their expeditions. So it's been going on for hundreds of years. Okay. Weather information, Rusty. The weather information of Windy is never the actual weather. or sometimes, no, it's not the actual weather. That's right. It's a forecast, but always a prediction that takes several hours to compute. How old is this data on the GGR tracker, and is there a difference? Well, it's coming from Windy, but they provide I believe it's a composite of a few different models. It's slightly different than most of them. I often try to identify it, and I can't say it's exactly any one of the 4 models that Windy now offer, but it's still very good. It's still very cool, and it's maybe getting better, because I don't know whether you've noticed, but every time now I get an annoying advert from Windy. Every time I turn on the tracker, it comes up and says, "This is the Windy site. If you want to do it, you got to go to the Windy website, or you're not got to, but you can go to their main website, which is cool, because I like Windy, and Yellow Brick, they're doing a deal or something, but now it's every day, and you've got to wait for 5 seconds or something before you can get rid of it to get to the tracker. Windy is good. I use it a lot, so no complaints. And it's whatever they're putting out there, it's still very relevant to the GGR, and it's still close enough to work with. When I give weather alerts for the entrance, I use the Windy main site, and I pay €18 or $18 a year to get the upgraded professional version of Windy, and it's great. So, okay, Larry, please give us a how best for all of us faithful followers can prepare to the massive withdrawals that will inevitably hit hard once the race is over. How best to cope? Just go to the corner of the room and have a good cry. All right, you'll get over it. So anyway, and the OGR is coming up, the 50th anniversary celebration of the original fully crewed race, the Whitbread. And whilst the GGR is the grandmother of the Vendée Globe, which it is, because that's where it came from, it can be said that the GGR is also maybe the grandfather of the Whitbread, because Sir Robin Knox Johnson, when he finished the Gold Globe, he was in various yacht clubs and talking about it, and a few of them got together and said, well, we should do a fully crewed race around the world, after that, because it hadn't been done. The original Golden Globe was the very first yacht race around the world, and so they got together, and that's how the Whitbread race started. So when we go over to Southampton, if you saw the models of the original Golden Globe feat that the artisan here in France put together over 20 years, we're hoping to get those models over to Southampton. And no guarantees. He's working up an idea now, and so on. So yeah. Just get over it. So no, it's probably a bit cruel, but I've got no real answer. But certainly, then after that's the mini globe race. We're going to race the tracker and all our little minis. They're going to race around the world in 25. So that'll be quite fun, believe me. Smith Crew, hi Don. What have been your highlights, lowlights of running the GGR? I had the best highlight today. I read a comment and I cracked up. It just hit me. I just laughed so hard. And then I saw who said it. It was quite interesting. I'm going to make a post on my private Facebook page about it. And it went something like this. It was on a picture of Kirsten's boat floating out in the middle. This only happened this morning in our gallery. And the comment was, if Don McIntyre was running all the world sailing events, sailing would be bigger than football. And it cracked me up. And then I saw it was from Andrew Hurst, the editor-owner of Seahorse magazine. It was like, whoa, that was cool. Anyway, Andrew, you're not going to be watching this, but geez, I laughed. And then I saw it was you. So that's cool. So I'm going to put something on my thing. That was a real highlight, because we get a lot of compliments and all that sort of stuff. And we're really grateful for that. The GGR family is really quite special around the world. It's the way we run the GGR is it's very human, because it is. It's not driven because we don't have a lot of money, but the main reason we do it like the way we do is because that's what it is. Just talking to your mates, down the pub or doing whatever. I don't drink, but it's just to me, it's very natural. And for Ada's the same, and for our whole team, everything we do is we just and so we're just having fun. It's not quite like that, because it is hard work, but we do it the way we think it should be done, and it seems to work, and people like it. So that's cool. That was a real highlight. What's the low light? There's not. What's the worst part? Oh, getting knockbacks from sponsors is always, sometimes it's really sort of a bit depressing, but I don't want to get into that too far. It's hard to even think of a low light. Ooh, jeepers. I might have to take that on note. I don't know. Nothing really stands out. There's no such thing that's a low light as such. It is what it is. I take it day by day as to what's happening, and even if something might annoy me or whatever, what people say or do whatever, I see that as part of the GGR. I can never please everyone all the time. I'm going to piss off so many people on so many things that I do. Even myself, when I watch some of the video replays, I have what I won't call a nervous laugh, but it's just who I am. When I'm saying, "Oh, how you doing?" And even I get sick of watching the laugh, but it's just I can't stop it. It's just me. And someone, I don't know. I don't know what. It's interesting. I really don't think of any lowlights. All of it's good for me because it's really what the GGR is. It's funny. I'm desperately trying to think of something that was horrible, but I honestly can't think of anything. Maybe getting up in the middle of the night, even that's just part of it. It's easy for me because I'm not sailing the boat. So if I got to get up, take phone calls at funny hours, it's not a problem because the guys making the phone call the other end are having a much tougher time. So I honestly can't think of any lowlights. That's interesting. Lowlights. So lowlights, yeah. Simon, okay, Rutger. Simon is no longer in the race, but Kirsten's 35-hour compensation will be deducted from her arrival time. So no matter what Kirsten's official arrival time will still be for Simon's unofficial, her arrival time. So no matter what Kirsten's official arrival time will still be before Simon's. Yes, actually, technically, you're right. Simon did not, he wasn't eligible for any positions and this, that, and the other, but this is just answering this guy's question. He's Chichester class, completely separate thing. So we don't get into the technicalities because his Chichester class is not in the rankings. But yes, you're right. Simon would not have been given line honours for his arrival time. He was actually slower than Kirsten around the world because Kirsten had 35-hour time credit. So then, adjusting the thing, Simon would have lost his line honours and he would have been behind Kirsten. Okay, so that's answering your question. No matter what anyone says, Simon can never say he actually arrived before Kirsten because Kirsten diverted for Tapio. Does that make sense? All right. Nothing more to be said there because Simon did a great race very fast. And yes, Simon diverted to Chile. So he sailed along the blah, blah, blah. But the reality is if he was in the race, he wouldn't have been given line honours credit. Okay. Okay. Next one. Thank you for the GGR. During very bad conditions, why don't sailors wear headgear, elbow, knee protection, minimise damage to themselves? Well, they couldn't live in a helmet and live it. Oh, well, they could put it all on in a blow. I think Ian had a helmet. We may not have been wearing it at the time, but I think he had a helmet on board. He's a pretty safety conscious guy. I don't think anyone's got knee protection and so on. So if I was going up the mast in heavy weather, I would wear like a buoyancy pad around the chest and everything. And I've just bought helmets for Explorer for the fully crewed boat. And I carried a helmet. If you've watched my GGR, my BOC documentary called McIntyre Knockdown on the McIntyre Adventure YouTube channel, you'll see me wearing a helmet often. Because when it was really bad and going out on deck or whatever it is, and sometimes down below, I was knocked down 7 times in the leg from Cape Town to Sydney. And a couple of times rolled 360 as well, but I wasn't wearing a helmet when I did the 360 because I wasn't expecting it. And so things happen. I think Ian, I'm not sure, we haven't had a big chat with Ian yet. We see each other and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sure whether he's in his bunk or whether he's standing up when he got thrown in his rollover. So, yeah, they just don't want to do it. No one's thought about wearing all that gear all that time down below. Okay, what's the best strategy for being stuck in a shipping lane with no wind whilst avoiding fuel penalties? Well, just be awake. Look out for the ships. You don't worry about fuel penalties if you've got to turn your motor on and avoid a ship. And it was obviously tough for Abolish in those conditions. Or was it Simon? In the fog. They had fog in the busiest shipping lane there, and they could hear the ships, but they couldn't see them. They could hear them go past. They knew they were there. But so you just got to be alert. There's no other good tactic for that. Nancy, did Ian check his motor to see if it was damaged before the craft was abandoned? I suggested to him that he should check his motor to make sure it was able to be involved with manoeuvring alongside or when involved with a ship pickup. and I'm not sure of the status of that. I forget now, but he never really fully cleared the mast, so he wouldn't have been able to manoeuvre anyway. So I'm not sure. Sailing someday. Don, given the soft winds in the bay, could you speak to the rule about entrants not being able to use their engine within 250 miles of the finish? That's an interesting one. It was very simple. When I did the notice of race, they can use their engines, but in the 2018 edition, there was no fuel penalty. And I thought, wouldn't it look horrible for someone to get close to the finish and then just turn their motor on and have a drag race motoring to the finish, which are just not good. So I made that rule before fuel penalties, and it just figured out the last 250 miles at least they got a sail, so no engines. Simple as that. So just not nice to run to the finish under motor, you know. It would have been nice to replay the tracker with historical windy. All the boats that have retired are grey and cannot be identified. I'm not sure what you mean there, because you can, no, you could. The amount of brain power used on that program to run all the windy all the way back when you do the video replay would be just too horrific and too hard, because the weather would be blocking out the boats. It'd become, you just see this massive flash of green. It's no good. So anyway, so it's a bit too hard to do. And it would be nice, of course, if you could stop any time and look at the weather. But the best thing about the 2022 edition is that I decided to make the effort to do daily tracker updates with the weather and going forecasts, which overlap to the next day. So effectively, at any time during the course of the race, you have a historical data record of the entire weather for the entire race. Okay, and it means you can go back if you see an incident in the summary that you want to go and look at. You can pick the day, go back to my daily tracker, and you can see exactly what's happening. So it's cool for everyone, including us, because I had a discussion the other day about some issues of the race. I won't talk about it, but you can go back and check it. If you don't believe me, it's all there. You know, in particular, one of them was an interesting debate I had saying, oh, you know, you didn't give a good enough forecast for Ian, and if you had, he wouldn't have lost his boat. Sorry, that's wrong. Go back and look at when that storm formed and look at what I was saying all the way through. We did everything we could to get Ian to avoid that storm, and he couldn't. It had his name written all over it, so nothing to do with us. Okay, Philip. Don, can you talk about sail repairs? Is there any mechanical sewing aids being used, or is it all done by hand? Thinking about Abolish and how good the repair is done at sea. No one's got sewing machines. You can get 12-volt sewing machines. You can get hand-operated sewing machines and all that sort of stuff. But the sails now are usually pretty good. They're really great. When Jean-Luc went around the world, he set his mainsail, his genoa, and his staysail, and never touched them for the whole way around the world. So he didn't raise or lower it. He didn't change any sails there. Those three were all the same the whole way. All he did was set and pull down spinnakers and basically did no sail repairs all the way around the world. Abolish had those big tears. It was all done by hand, maybe a bit of tape as well. No one's got a sewing machine, so it's all done by hand. Terry, will Kirsten be bringing Minihar back to Canada after the race? No idea, to Prince Edward Island. I know she's busting to go back, but I'm not sure. I doubt whether she'll be sailing the boat back there. But you'd have to ask her. Questions, merchandise. Oops, here we go again. As you've not had a chance to sell the GGR merch, are you like to bring any with you to the Ocean Race Village in September, as well as the OGR merchandise? We'll be there. Accommodate is booked. Looking forward to it. Yes, we will try to. We will have merchandising for OGR at the village, and we'll try and bring some GGR merchandise as well. We're just ordering all the OGR stuff now because it takes quite a few months. So yes, we will try to do that. And don't give up on the shop yet. We'll try and do something. We've got a plan, but we've just been too busy. But that's going to wind down now in the next few weeks for GGR, so we might be able to get something happening. Don, this is Warren. What are the rules about GGR telling competitors about when others finish? We tell them officially. Anyone that's withdrawn or changes a class or finishes, we tell the entrants. If they know they have lost, could it take the wind out of their sails? We look at that as well. We look at that as well. But when it's finishes and it didn't affect this race. Hi, Don. What's the situation with radar? Is it allowed for safety? Simon described cross and finish there in the fog and all the rest of it. Actually, I'd have to look to see if we actually ban radar. I don't. That's an interesting point. I don't think we do. Maybe we have. I'd have to look. I don't think we have. But no one would take radar down there. You can never get enough power to run it. It's just something else to break down, and you've got to have a screen. And so we may have banned it. I'd have to have a look. I can't answer that question properly. I'm not sure. On the radar thing, that's a funny one. And I'll have to have a look at the. I don't think we banned it, but why would you take it? It's a waste of time. As he doesn't have access to the ship's positions on AIS, can the entrant use radar to help avoid a collision? No, he doesn't need to because he hasn't got any of that. You're right. But the boats have AIS transponders, so all the other ships around can see where they are and who they are. They have a radar detector, which if a radar hits the boat, the alarm goes off. So just those 2 points alone, you can have alarms on the AIS as well. Then when the radar hits, it has a transponder that sends back a huge signal to the ship, making the little GGR boat look like a 120-foot steel fishing trawler. But then it's up to the entrant to get out and pay attention, work out where the ship is, try and work out where it is, or stay alert, or whatever. So it's proactive stuff that we use in the GGR. Tim, is it possible for entrants to hear from other parties who may be following the tracker on the location of competitors? As long as it's by radio, it's not a problem. If it's from a ship, it has to be a non-associated ship. So you can't have a ship escorting it and giving it all the positions and things like that. But yeah, the HF radio can be used for anything, and they can get any information that they want from that. Oops, no more questions, please. Oh, jeepers. That's where I stopped him. I don't know how many is even here. I don't know. We've been going for nearly an hour. Holy dooly. Don, you probably don't have time here to talk about the boat selection here. I understand that you're going to selection GGR boats. Like, why is the Cape George Cutter a good boat? It's got good waterline, plenty of sail area, and buoyancy up front, and so on. That's man. What attitudes? Oh boy, yeah, I can't do that. There's also the Biscay masthead, but catch. Oh boy, no, make your own decisions on that. But look at the results of this race. Okay, thanks, Mark. Hi, could a modern 36-foot twin rudder production boat, Beneteau, etc., be as safe and capable of rounding Cape Horn? I don't know. I wouldn't like to say on that. Could you talk about the pros and cons of whether newer versus older boats? Okay, well, I was looking at a boat last year to buy for me, which was the Beneteau Clipper 411. Beneteau Clipper 411. It was about 20 years old. I like to see a boat built a certain way for serious ocean work, and that was they were the last of the era where they were built with actual glassed-in bulkheads. They had proper structural floors and stringers and all that sort of stuff on the hull. They're beautiful boats. They've got a real timber interior. They've got a very solid rudder and sort of skegger. The arrangement of the rudder is really strong. Keels are pretty bulletproof, all that sort of stuff. Masthead rig, which I kind of like. Had all the whiz bangs on it. It was only about 80,000 euro or something. I would have sailed that around the world by the Southern Ocean if I wanted to, and I checked everything out and all those sorts of things. So, and in the long route, which happened in 2018 at the same time, which was sort of like a recreation of Matessia's thing. There was a couple of Beneteaus in there, and they got around quite well. One of them was assisting us in a rescue of one of our guys. And the long route's on again, by the way, in 24, I think it is, next year, which would be a bit of fun. So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with because I don't know a lot about the current boats, but certainly some of the earlier Beneteaus, as you know, they're really good boats. Nothing wrong with modern designs, fin keels and like SNS 34. Well, that's still an older boat, but Contessa 32s, all those boats, they're all more modern than our boats. They're fantastic. You can sail around the world, no problem. But you've got to make sure planning, preparation, execution on that boat and all the gear. So Rust 36 keel is only half the length of the waterline. Does that count as a full keel? Yes, absolutely. It's a full keel. Goes right down. It's not a fin keel, and the rudder's attached to the trailing edge. Is a carbon fiber spinnaker pole out? Nope. No carbon fiber in the GGR. Will Kirsten have another sound cloud before she arrives? She did. How many hours does Kirsten get for 30 litres of fuel? No, you don't transfer it to hours. It just stays with the credit for any fuel she used. She didn't use it, didn't need it, but it would have been 2 litres an hour, but you don't get a time credit. Question, will it be possible for GGR 26 to enter? No way. This is one of the reasons why we define very clearly. Once you're in the Chichester, you're out of the race. Because I've had quite a few people call up, "Oh, can I get an entry into Chichester class?" And I said, sort of, I say it politely. Hi, Don, could you please convince Kirsten to start a sailing YouTube channel? I'd subscribe to that. Sailing Minnehaha, thanks. Oh, that'd be hard. It takes a lot of work to do all this stuff. Got a brief glimpse of all the boats in the Bay of Biscayne. Wow, isn't it dangerous to be there and not use your engine? No, they can use your engine anytime. You get 25 litres for free. After that, that's a fact of life, but you've got to be safe. When will the notice of race of GGR 26 be posted? It already is. You can just go onto the website, GGR website. It's been there for a year, and you'll see the pre-notice of race for GGR 26. And if you're interested in entering, get in quick. It's filling up fast. John, any chance your lives can also be simultaneously broadcast on Instagram as well? I asked Jane about that. She wasn't sure and things like that. We haven't done it. I don't know whether it is possible. It's a bit tricky. And they're a bit long. I can't imagine this being on Instagram, so I don't know whether that works for us. Richard, have you ever been tempted to spill the beans to the sailors where their other sailors are located? Often, but I never would. In fact, I tell our guys in the offices, you cannot do anything that changes the game. It's disrespectful for the entrant as much as they'd like it, because I've had conversations over the phone where the entrant's pleading with me to give them some information. I say, look, you're going to hate me now. I'm not going to give it to you. And they hate me until it's all over. And then they realize that I'm just, can't do it. It's not what they want, even though they want it. Bit hard to explain that. But anyway, does the notice of race specify no motoring 250 miles? Yes. How many of the boats are equipped with parasailers? I think there was one or two. It's a pretty cool system for, a dismasted boat. You set your sail and you're away, so you don't even have to set a jury rig. So that's a pretty good system indeed for that situation. And it's approved as a jury rig in the GGR. What's the no motoring zone and where is it mentioned? Oh, all over the notice of race and all over the GGR. And just look at any of the previous tracking, daily updates that I give during those part of the course. You'll see me mention it. It's to keep boats accessible to other ships and traffic that might be called to assist them. It's worked out with the rescue coordination centres around the world. Charlie, what's the expected time adjustment applicable to Kirsten for stopping to pick up Tapio? It was 35 hours. Ria, sorry I missed why Simon is in Chichester cast. Thanks for the updates. Okay. Kings, will Kirsten be rewarded or receive a time bonus for assisting Ian? For assisting Ian? No, it was Tapio. And it was 35 hours. Re Kirsten, she seems so introverted and hard on herself. Will the razzmatazz overwhelm her? No, not at all. She's embraced it, which is good to see. Even though she's really embraced it. She's definitely not introverted. She stayed focused on the boat. I understand why she did those short tweets. That met the rule. We were in touch. That's all we needed. And she didn't want to set her mind off the boat and have to make a joke or talk about sponsors and do this, that, and the other. Some people like doing that. Others don't. And so I respect that. But when it comes to media, she's been fantastic. During the race, all the satellite calls, the chats that I had with her, we had great conversations, and that's the key to it. So, we're nearly to the end. I can't pull up any more questions. Stand by. Don't leave yet. Ooh. An hour and 3 minutes. Oh, we didn't make the hour. Even though she does it, okay. Bert, did Kirsten receive any fuel penalties? No. She only used 30 litres for the whole lot. When we calculated how much fuel she would have used for assisting Tapio, all the manuals and everything was suggesting to us it was about 25 litres. And to be sure that she didn't miss out, we put in an extra 5 litres, which brought it up to 30 litres of compensated fuel time. In reality, when we went to put the fuel in the tank here in Les Sables alone, we only got 30.7 litres in the tank. So she didn't even use her 25 litres. We didn't have to do anything. We just left the time as it was. So there was no penalty at all. And you don't get a time credit for fuel you didn't use that you could have used, because she gets a time credit for the time she was off the course, which was the 35 hours. Nearly the last one. Did you notice that Ablish has still not tied the knot? Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I don't know whether he did. I haven't looked now. Maybe he did. In fact, I think he would have, because I saw where he sailed to when he crossed the line and went back out because he wanted to have a chat with his wife and stuff. I think he would have tied the knot then. So right at the end. Last one. Someone was saying saying the port closes at 10 p.m. No, La Sable's open all the time. All right, that's it. That's a long one. Jeepers, an hour and 4 minutes and 35, 36, 37 seconds. So thanks for that. I'll have a quick, if you finish, you can go now. I'm just going to have a quick look through the comments here for those that might be hanging on if there's another one there. So yeah, this is an epic. Test, will just know he sold the boat in Perth. Oh, just know he sold the boat in Perth and went home. Oh, maybe Elliot sold the boat. We haven't spoken about Elliot for a long time. I know he went home, but I don't know whether he sold the boat. So I hope he did. That's cool. Yet Contessa's a beauty. Are the entrants allowed to run the engines for? Yeah, they can. All the entrants are given 25 litres of fuel for free once they leave the marina. At the start, they have to motor to the start, so they'll motor down the channel, and have a big hoo-ha, and then they sail to the start then usually, and that's it. So they get 25 litres. We calculated that so that the engines can be run a little bit every week or so to get the oil up to temperature. You've got to run it for at least 15 minutes or so to get the oil up. Make sure it's working. They should turn their prop over, and this is what we advise them in the thing. Make sure the folding prop's open and everything, just in case it's used as an emergency. Because if the engines are not run all the way and the prop's left closed and it gets all barnacles and slime or whatever, they might not open when we need them to motor somewhere to assist another entrance. So they can do it. They can do it all within that 25 litres. Ian, I'm curious what the participant might say about the state of the sea life of all kinds. I've read, yes, it's what, because we spoke about this regularly with the entrance, and it's a bit up and down. Some places, those that have been there before, so there's less. Sometimes it's great. There's all there, some big this, that, and the other. So it's still a bit hard to comment on that. It's unfortunate that there is not a rule where one designated person is the only person to meet each competitor at the finish to tell the sailors their position and record their reaction. Oh, well, that's life. We do it as it happens, so we wouldn't necessarily structure anything like that. Each arrival will be different. Sometimes they just come for you. That is. Don, what's the penalties the first three finishers got and the compensations to the time penalties? That is. Okay, Simon's doesn't count. He could have motored all the way and used up his fuel he picked up in Chile, so it doesn't matter. He's got no time penalties. We've already checked Kirsten's everything that's sealed. She's all buttoned up, like the panic bags and the bits and pieces. We've checked all her seals, the emergency water. We've checked her navigation logs and all that stuff. We've got photographs of that, which we may post up later on, and her nav books and stuff. So she did Celestial navigate. So she's let off the hook, and the penalties have been allocated. We listed the times in the press conference as well, and it'll come out in a press release. Okay, and then Abolish, we haven't done Abolish's seal checks yet, and Abolish's time penalty and credits has been done for his fuel already. Do they just come for you, Don? Okay? We've done that. Okay, I'm missing some. I'm still very impressed with Simon. Yep, I'm totally impressed with Simon. There's no problem there. I just answered the question on line on us. He wouldn't have got line on us. Morning, guys. I hate how many sailors I talk to in states or in industry that doesn't even know about the GGR and work for a Jeanneau dealer. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Although I've got to say, jeepers, I used to subscribe all the time. I used to get them international priority email for Sailing World and also Cruising World in America. And of course, they've faded a bit, and it's not as important because they've got the internet and so on. Jeepers. Thanks to Kirsten, we've been getting, we get lead feedback and connections to where it's getting covered. And I didn't realize, but both Cruising World and Sailing World, they're huge. They have a couple of 100,000 subscribers, but the posts they were putting up on Kirsten, they were getting like 18,000 emotions or something, and like 4, 5, 6,000 shares, and crikey, the coverage there is huge. So I think Kirsten's win is waking up a lot of people to what the GGR is. And once people have seen it a little bit, I'm sure they'll follow it again, and they're reading about it now. So Kirsten's been a king hit for the GGR, which is fantastic. So yeah, I know what you're saying, Jesse. So it felt fantastic event, Don. Many thanks, especially those still at sea. What's the harm in informing all the entrants their position relating to each other? It's really because you just don't do that. I could do it by satellite every day if I wanted to, but we don't want to do that. That didn't happen in the it didn't happen in the GGR in '68. It didn't happen in 18. And it's not happening now. And you can see just the fact that you are saying, "Oh, it'd be so much better for them." Of course it would. But that's what's horrible about the GGR, and that's what the attraction is. You're stepping back in time. It's not instant gratification, and it's not instant access to information. It's going back to where it was. So every time I see someone complaining about it, I get excited. Oh, beauty. They're going to have to think about it now and understand what the GGR stands for. So they'll never be given positions from us. I want to do the 580 and GGR one day. Good on you, Jesse. Go for it. Yeah. All start at the same time and almost similar boats. How do they arrive finally in different times? Because it's a long way around the world and a lot of things happen. And people make different choices about everything from equipment to the course they're going to sail that day. They sail different ways. So it's like a scatter effect. Can a competitor dip into the no-go if he needs to avoid weather? Yes. And we'll often, didn't happen this time because the weather we're very lucky in the Southern Ocean this edition, but we'd often directed people into the zone to get away from storms, so it's not a problem. No time penalty then. And if an entrant made a decision on that as well, we'd respect that, and they wouldn't get time penalty. If they called for safety reasons, they wanted to go down there, and we assessed their explanation of safety, we agreed, they get no time penalty. Not to use it as an excuse, they'd get the penalty, but greetings from Australia. Yeah, g'day, Josley. Mexico won't be the first Whitbread. Yeah, they won the first Whitbread. Absolutely. That was Sayula. Swan 65. Loved the race. Followed the commentary every day. A bit disappointed with the finish. I felt that you were sidelined in the press conference. No, not at all. The press conference is about the entrant. I never felt sidelined at all. Even when I'm, you got to. No. Thanks for the comment, but I wasn't sidelined at all. Press conference is all about the entrant, and you let them say what they say. And even when I was doing the SoundCloud phone calls, I always try to. Sometimes I get drawn into the conversation. So I want to talk and comment and stuff, but usually it's all about the entrant talking. You encourage them to get going. It's not about me. Hi Don. First for Kirsten, I'm guessing that she was also the youngest person to win the GGR. Absolutely, yes. No, Robin was only 29 when he won the GGR. So Kirsten's like a grandmother compared to 29. Jeepers, I think she's 40. So sorry, Kirsten, I didn't really mean that, but you know what I mean. Everything's relative. So no, Robin was the youngest. Congratulations to, and should say, I think somebody may not have seen. Robin was very disappointed he couldn't be here to meet the first entrance, but he's cruising in his own boat, sort of thing, and he's been attacked by orcas, and he's had electrical problems with the boat, and all sorts of adventures and dramas. But he sent his heartfelt apologies and congratulations to everyone. What an epic congratulations! Don't change a thing. It's this in this age of non-stop connectivity and high tech. It's refreshing. I agree. We will not play with the concept of the GGR. I really hope the GGR carries on forever now. Many round the world races have since died because they're all trying to outdo each other and blah, blah, blah. The GGR is what it is. It'll stay that way, and we're proud. Everyone involved is pretty proud of it. Truth hurts because it's all about doing it originally. Yeah. I feel each competitor deserves to know his or her position. Oh, jeez. Sorry about truth hurts. It'll never happen. So what would be the point of not doing that during a competition? Because it's not a competition. It's a grand adventure. And the competition starts from the moment they cross the start line. They've got to get to the finish line under the same conditions of 1968. And it didn't happen then, and it won't happen now. So, but thanks for the comment. I'm not taking the mickey in there. I understand what you're saying. Truth hurts, but that's the way it is, and that's the way it'll always be. It's crazy now how much wear and tear happens non-stop sailing. Yeah, it's true. How's the day sailor build kills in the first one? Yeah, it wasn't a day sailor, the Elizabethan and I forget the name of Sir Che Blythe's boat, but they were bilge keelers and they weren't quite the best design for the race, but that's why they didn't get past Cape Town. I love it. It's just the sailors in their boats. Exactly. Absolutely love keeping the rules the same. Yep. Or they're not exactly the same as 68, but in today's world, it's as close as we can get it and keep it safe. Martin Manning agreed. I've had my day 28, my Southern Cross 28, same seaway as the Flex the Southern Ocean. Yep. What did Ablis have in place for his wind vane rudder when he crossed the finish line? You may know about a Fortress anchor. It's an aluminium anchor that you can get, comes disassembled, and you just bolt it together. And I've always had a Fortress as my backup biggest anchor, because you can get a really big one in physical size area for drag on the bottom. But it's quite light, and you can disassemble it and put it away in a small space. And so if you see a big storm coming, you need another anchor, you pull that out. Well, it has a stock, an aluminium stock that's tapered from the top down the back, and it's flat. Ablis basically bolted that on as the pendulum rudder, and it is bulletproof rudder, but it's a small surface area, but it gave him enough surface area to work the boat, which is cool. Quite clever. My question, comfort ratio reference the skipper. A well-rested, oh, that's true. Well, yeah, yes, Martin, you're right. A well-rested skipper is important. It helps the whole process going along. So that's another good reason to put that in the mix of choosing your boat design. But everyone will address that in different ways. That's a masterclass type of boats that participated. Thanks, Don. No, a guy that runs square sail at Cape George. Yeah, I believe it. Square sail at Cape George would look good because it's that sort of real bluff bow. And I could imagine a big square sail on Cape George. Be a classic. That's it. Okay, I've had enough. See you later. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll keep the questions going with GGR right up to the prize giving and stuff. If there's enough questions there, we can do a shorter one. See you later. Bye-bye. Nope.